$58 billion to the total debt. Now, there's a group of senators who want to come back in the new year and stir up the national conversation about the debt and the deficit. One of them is Virginia Senator Mark Warner, who is in Washington tonight. Senator Warner, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Tyler, thanks for having me.
Now, after the first of the year, when the new Congress convenes, you and your colleague on the other side of the aisle, Senator Chambliss of Georgia, intend, as I understand it, to introduce a bill based on President Obama's deficit commission, which did not win enough votes to force consideration in the Senate, but you think it's a good idea to talk about it anyway. Why?
Well, Tyler, first of all, remember, it did get 11 out of 18 votes. It got north of 60%. That would have actually meant it would have passed even with the Senate's rules. And it's not a perfect plan, but we've got to keep this discussion going. I mean, you know, last week we came together on the tax plan, and hopefully that will stimulate the economy, but we also, by that action, added $800 billion to the deficit. So the idea that we can keep kicking the can down the road on deficit reduction and more major tax reform, I think, is short-sighted. The fact is, we are going to have to do deficit reduction. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and I would rather have that when on our timeline and not when the market says, okay guys, we're not giving you any more room, we're going to force draconian actions on you the way they have on Greece and on Ireland.
Do you think, in retrospect, I want to look more forward than back, but
Sure.
In retrospect, was the tax bill the right thing to do at the right time? Basically, as you say, we've added something north of $800 billion to the total national debt, and we've got to reckon with it somewhere, sometime.
Well, I think, listen, I think Chairman Bernanke at the Fed is got his head screwed on right. He said to all of us, we need additional short-term stimulus, but then to give business the predictability they need, we need a longer-term deficit reduction plan. So, in effect, what he's asking us to do is, you know, walk and chew gum. So let's go ahead and show that we can do the short-term stimulus to help us continue to come out of this recession, and I think we're going to see very good fourth quarter results, and I think you're seeing a very strong holiday season. But then let's kick a plan in place and put it in place, recognizing that the effects of it won't fully kick in probably till 2013 or even a little bit later, that will, over the next 5-8 years, get our balance sheet back in order. And what I thought the deficit plan of the President's Commission did was it said we've got to look at entitlement cuts, we've also got to look at revenues in terms of how we use the tax code, and it also had the added benefit of actually, in terms of tax reform, broadening the base and lowering the rates, particularly for businesses, which will make us more competitive on the global economy.
And that's what I'd like to talk about. And I think, by the way, I think most Americans are happy to see that you and Senator Chambliss are getting together on this, and it does suggest that everybody seems to understand that. Finally, once and for all, we've got a problem. We got a drinking problem here. You know, we got to.
One more trip to the bar before we're going to stop.
We got to come up and solve this. But let me ask you this, because you talked about tax issues here. Can we really solve the deficit problems if we don't solve the complexity of our tax system?
Tyler, I don't think so. And that was, again, what the Deficit Commission at least took a giant step forward on. You know, a lot of the focus was on how they were going to reduce the deficit and some of the painful choices that were going to be made. What there wasn't as much attention on was the other two pieces they did to the tax code. One, which was broaden the base by closing down some of the tax exemptions and lowering rates for businesses to get us below the OECD levels, the international level. We're at 35%. This would take us down top rate to about 26%, make us much more competitive. And also from the personal tax code basis, it actually does the same. It lowers rates, and for Democrats, it actually makes the tax code for individuals a little bit more progressive by closing off some of the tax expenditures or tax loopholes that the wealthier use.
I just want to come back one more time to the tax bill that was just passed. Does it, in some sense, because it adds so much to the total debt, set us up for failure?
Well, it does push off a lot of the hard choices for 2 years. But I think, you know, and I think, frankly, the President and his economic advisors and Chairman Bernanke, and I think most of us in Congress on both sides understood that this economy, while it seems to be picking up steam, that if we didn't take a little more stimulative action, both in terms of keeping the tax rates lower and doing some of the things like the unemployment compensation and some of the earned income tax credits and other items out there, that you still ran the risk of seeing a double dip. So we're giving that extra stimulus, that north of $800 billion over the next 2 years. But the idea that we can do more of that 2 years from now just doesn't pass muster in my mind. And that's why I'm saying let's go ahead and at least put in place the plan this coming year so that we don't end up simply getting into a presidential election year where the tendency would be to simply punt again until 2013.
So not to put words into your mouths, but you think that 2011 is the critical year for this issue?
You know, it's not very senatorial, but I think it's put up or shut up time.
Senator Warner of Virginia, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tyler.